Shaping your future, the imperative of proactive career planning in residency training. It's one of those topics where the gap between what we know and what we do can be consequential, so today we close that gap. To effectively shape our future, we first need a clear roadmap of the journey ahead. This overview outlines the 5 key landmarks we'll navigate together, providing a comprehensive framework for building a successful and sustainable medical career. First, we'll anchor our discussion in the present reality. The medical landscape is evolving at an unprecedented pace, influenced by everything from digital health integration to new models of care delivery. We'll explore how these powerful external forces directly impact your career choices and why a passive approach is no longer a viable option. Next, we'll examine the science behind career planning. These aren't just abstract theories. They are validated frameworks that help us understand how we make complex decisions under pressure. A helpful way to think about this is having a diagnostic algorithm, not for a patient, but for your own professional path. From theory, we'll move to tangible outcomes. The data consistently shows a powerful link between proactive career planning and improved resident well-being. Having a sense of direction and agency is one of our most effective tools against burnout and attrition. We'll synthesize the evidence that proves planning isn't a distraction from training, it's integral to surviving it. Of course, evidence is only useful if we can apply it. That's why we will dedicate significant time to evaluating practical, actionable strategies. We'll discuss concrete tools and communication techniques for you as residents, for your mentors who guide you, and for the program directors responsible for creating a supportive environment. Finally, we'll look over the horizon. We'll discuss the questions we still need to answer through research and the policy changes that could help institutionalize better career support. This is about ensuring the next generation of physicians is even better prepared and more resilient than our own. This structure gives us a clear path for our conversation. But before we explore the how, we must first establish the why. So the critical question we need to address right away is, what makes this topic so urgent right here and right now? So we've laid out a path for navigating your future, but a fundamental question remains. Why does this demand our attention right now, in the midst of an already overwhelming residency? The most pressing reason is the crisis of physician burnout. When large-scale studies show nearly half of physicians across all specialties are reporting symptoms, we have to look deeper. A major factor is a profound misalignment between a physician's daily work and their core values. Proactive career planning isn't just about getting a job. It's a powerful antidote, helping you build a practice that genuinely sustains you. At the same time, the landscape for subspecialization has grown incredibly competitive. Securing a top fellowship spot today requires more than just good scores. It demands early, strategic action, identifying mentors, engaging in relevant research, and building a professional network long before the application cycle even begins. The very business of medicine is also in flux. The rapid adoption of telemedicine and the growing influence of corporate entities like private equity mean that the traditional practice model is no longer a given. To thrive in this new ecosystem, you must be adaptable, equipped with skills that extend beyond the clinic walls. And of course, we cannot ignore the financial realities. With the average medical student graduating with over $200,000 of debt, this is a significant variable in every career equation. Your specialty, your practice model, and even your location will be influenced by this burden. A clear plan is essential for managing these decisions effectively. Yet, despite these high-stakes pressures, formal career guidance in residency is often sparse. We teach you how to be an excellent clinician, but we frequently fail to teach you how to be the architect of your own career. This leaves many feeling unprepared. Given this complex environment, how can we build a robust, evidence-based approach for our own professional lives? What are the foundational models that can guide us through this process? If we accept that proactive career planning is essential, the logical next question is, how do we structure our thinking? Fortunately, we don't have to invent the process from scratch. Decades of research in organizational psychology have given us powerful models that we can apply directly to medicine. A foundational concept is Super's lifespan lifespace theory. This model views your career not as a single fixed decision, but as a continuous journey through distinct stages. Think about it. You've already moved from exploration in medical school to establishment in residency. Super's framework helps us identify the specific career tasks that are most important at each phase of our professional lives. Then we have social cognitive career theory, which focuses on the internal dialogue that shapes our choices. It's a dynamic interplay between three things: your belief in your own ability, or self-efficacy, your expectations about the results of your actions, and your personal goals. For example, you might feel very confident you can master a complex surgical skill, but you might also expect that the lifestyle will be grueling. This theory helps us unpack that internal negotiation. Person-environment fit theory is perhaps the most intuitive. The key principle here is congruence, finding alignment between your own traits, values, and interests, and the demands and culture of a specific specialty. A physician who thrives on long-term patient relationships and continuity of care might find a perfect fit in primary care, but feel less satisfied in a role with more transient encounters. Of course, we can't ignore Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In practice, this reminds us that practical considerations like income, job security, and location often form the base of our decision-making pyramid. It's hard to focus on self-actualization if you're worried about paying off student loans. And that's okay. Acknowledging these needs is realistic, not a failure of ambition. Finally, early exposure and strong mentorship act as powerful catalysts that influence all these other factors. A single compelling rotation or an inspiring attending can completely reshape your sense of what's possible, revealing a career path you never even considered. So we have these excellent theoretical maps for navigating career development, but is anyone actually using them? How well are these principles being integrated into residency training, and what are the real-world consequences when they're ignored? So when we translate those theoretical models of career development into the day-to-day reality of residency, what do we actually find? The evidence is quite compelling. We now know that when residents engage in structured career planning, there's a direct correlation with higher personal satisfaction, lower rates of burnout, and measurably improved resilience. The why behind this is intuitive. Having a clear roadmap reduces cognitive load and anxiety. In practice, residents who have defined career goals, even if those goals evolve over time, report a much deeper level of engagement with their training. They're not just checking boxes, they're actively seeking experiences that align with their future. This proactive stance also appears to protect against professional regret after training is complete. Here's the fundamental disconnect, however. Despite these clear benefits, the majority of residency programs in the United States lack a formal, standardized system for career counseling. This leaves most residents to navigate these critical, life-altering decisions on their own, often with limited time and significant stress. Research consistently reveals this chasm between the residents' stated desire for guidance and the actual institutional resources available to them. It's a systemic gap we can't afford to ignore. And that points to a crucial limitation in our current understanding. While we have excellent short-term correlational data, there's a scarcity of long-term longitudinal studies. We don't yet have a clear picture of how these early planning efforts affect career trajectories, pivots, and satisfaction 10 or 20 years down the line. How then can we begin to systematically measure these pathways and build a more evidence-based model for guiding our trainees? To answer that, we need a rigorous and reproducible analytical framework. Understanding the gaps in career planning is one thing. Systematically analyzing them is another. To do that effectively, we need a rigorous and multifaceted approach. Here's the analytical framework we've used to dissect the challenges and opportunities residents face. First, we draw heavily from qualitative studies. Think of this as capturing the story behind the statistics. We explore the nuanced, personal narratives of how residents make critical decisions, what fears they navigate, and what truly motivates them beyond just a specialty choice. These aren't just anecdotes, they are structured insights into the why of career pathways. Of course, stories alone don't paint the whole picture. That's why we also incorporate quantitative data from large-scale resident surveys. This gives us the hard numbers on trends in specialty selection, evolving satisfaction levels over time, and the pervasive issue of burnout. This is the what and how many that provides scope and scale to the problem. And here's where the real power of our methodology emerges, in the synthesis. We use a mixed methods approach to connect the quantitative data with the qualitative stories. For example, we don't just see that a certain specialty has high attrition. We can cross-reference that with interview data that explains why residents are leaving, perhaps due to a perceived lack of mentorship or work-life imbalance. To organize these complex interactions, we apply a socio-ecological model. A helpful way to think about this is in concentric circles of influence. At the center is you, the individual resident. Your program forms the next layer, and the wider healthcare system is the outermost layer. All these forces interact to shape your career, and this model helps us untangle them. Finally, to ground all this data and lived experience, we conducted interviews with program directors, mentors, and recent graduates. They provide an invaluable third-party perspective on the transition from training to practice. So, with this robust framework in place, the essential question becomes, what does all this evidence actually tell us about how to proactively and successfully plan your career? That analytical framework gives us a powerful lens to view this problem. And when we apply it, the evidence for proactive planning becomes remarkably clear. The data consistently shows that residents who develop a career plan don't just feel more prepared, they report significantly higher job satisfaction after graduation. This isn't about creating a rigid, unchangeable path. It's about building a compass that helps align your daily work with your long-term goals, preventing that post-training feeling of disillusionment. We also see a powerful protective effect from early mentorship. Engaging with a mentor isn't just for career advice, it's a critical part of forming your professional identity. In practice, a mentor acts as a professional anchor during the high-stress environment of residency, which dramatically reduces attrition. Then there's the financial piece. The transition from a resident to an attending salary can be jarring. Introducing financial planning during training isn't about wealth management. It's a wellness intervention designed to reduce a major source of stress, allowing you to focus on medicine. Perhaps the most profound impact is on professional well-being. A clear career vision directly correlates with lower rates of moral injury. When you know your why, it serves as a buffer against the systemic pressures that can lead to burnout. It reinforces your sense of professional efficacy, reminding you that you are an agent of change in your own career, not just a passive participant. Finally, proactive planning encourages intentional exploration. We often see residents lock into a specialty early, but those who actively explore other options frequently discover a much better fit for their personality and long-term fulfillment. All of this evidence paints a very persuasive picture. But if proactive planning is so obviously beneficial, why isn't every resident doing it? What are the real-world barriers that get in the way? While the evidence for proactive planning is compelling, it's not a simple plug-and-play solution. We have to be honest about the very real barriers that stand in the way of implementing it effectively during the intense years of residency training. The most obvious challenge is time. The 80-hour workweek isn't just a number, it's a profound cognitive and physical load. When you're focused on learning complex clinical skills and managing patient care, dedicating precious downtime to career introspection can feel like an impossible luxury. It's a classic battle between the urgent and the important. Then there's the undeniable influence of financial pressure. With the average medical school debt soaring well into the six figures, the pull towards higher-paying specialties is incredibly strong. This isn't about greed, it's about pragmatism. A resident might be deeply passionate about primary care, but feel compelled to pursue a procedural subspecialty to manage their financial obligations, potentially sacrificing long-term career satisfaction. We also see a challenge in the visibility of role models. If the senior physicians you interact with primarily represent traditional academic or private practice paths, it's difficult to envision a viable future in areas like public health policy, medical technology, or global health. You simply can't aspire to a career you don't know exists. And we must acknowledge the subtle but powerful effect of implicit bias in advising. A well-meaning mentor might steer a resident toward a certain field based on preconceived notions about personality, gender, or lifestyle fit, inadvertently closing doors to other possibilities. This can funnel talented individuals into predictable channels, limiting both personal and professional growth. Finally, some argue against this structured approach entirely, believing that a career should unfold organically through experience. They see formal planning as rigid and believe that serendipity and lived experience are the best guides. Acknowledging these barriers isn't a reason for inaction. The critical question isn't whether these challenges exist. They clearly do. The question is, how do we design a system that respects these realities, turning potential roadblocks into navigable parts of the journey? While the challenges to implementing these programs are real, the data on why we must tackle them is compelling. Synthesizing findings from successful institutions reveals a powerful blueprint centered on 5 key insights. First, effective career planning is a continuous process of self-assessment. It's like a longitudinal study of your own professional identity. Residents need tools to regularly evaluate not just their clinical skills, but their evolving interests and personal values, ensuring their career path truly aligns with who they are. Second, robust mentorship from a diverse group of physicians is paramount. A network of mentors from academic medicine, private practice, and industry is transformative. This exposure prevents professional tunnel vision and reveals the full spectrum of what a medical career can be. Third, we must offer formalized curricula on financial literacy and contract negotiation. This is a core competency. We train expert clinicians who are often business novices when they graduate. Empowering them with this knowledge helps them advocate for themselves and begin their careers on solid footing. Next, we have to provide early exposure to non-clinical pathways. Many residents are simply unaware of the impact they can have in public health, medical technology, or pharmaceuticals. Showcasing these options broadens their perspective on what it means to be a physician leader. Finally, the institution must provide tangible support. Offering dedicated career counseling and protected time sends a powerful message. It shifts career planning from a personal burden on the resident to a shared institutional priority, which we know alleviates stress and improves long-term career satisfaction. These insights paint a remarkably consistent picture of what works. So the critical question becomes, how do we take this blueprint and use it to systematically reshape residency training on a larger scale? Those findings aren't just data points. They are a clear mandate for action. They show us precisely where we can intervene to transform the residency experience from a gauntlet of survival into a period of strategic professional growth. So the question becomes, what are the practical applications of these insights? First, we must integrate dedicated career planning workshops directly into residency curricula. In practice, this means moving beyond purely clinical education to teach the business of medicine. We can equip residents with frameworks for evaluating different practice models, from academic centers to private practice, and give them the tools to build a professional network long before they start their job search. Next, the evidence is clear on the power of robust mentorship. A successful program requires a diverse pool of physician faculty, so a resident interested in global health can connect with a mentor who has actually walked that path. This isn't just about guidance, it's about modeling a sustainable and fulfilling career, which dramatically improves resident satisfaction and retention. We also have a responsibility to address the immense financial pressure our trainees face. Providing expert resources for student loan management and, crucially, independent contract review is not an optional perk. It's an essential intervention that reduces post-training anxiety and prevents early career missteps that can destabilize a physician for years. Ultimately, all of these efforts help foster a culture of career exploration. We want to encourage residents to find the niche that energizes them, whether that's in clinical practice, research, policy, or industry. When physicians are in roles that truly fit, we see a significant reduction in burnout and career turnover. And that is the essential connection. An empowered resident, one who feels supported and in control of their professional destiny, becomes a more engaged and satisfied physician, and that directly translates to better, safer, and more compassionate care for our patients. While these strategies hold immense promise, implementing them effectively at scale raises important questions. What are the barriers to widespread adoption, and where do the critical gaps in our knowledge still lie? While the benefits of structured career planning are becoming clear, for us to truly optimize these programs, we have to be honest about the limitations in our research. The evidence base we're building on has some important gaps that need our attention. A significant amount of our current research, for example, relies on self-reported data. In practice, this introduces bias. A resident's memory of their planning activities may be imperfect, which is recall bias, or they might answer a survey in a way they believe is more socially desirable. This can muddy the waters, making it difficult to know what interventions are truly effective. We also face a scarcity of true longitudinal studies. These are the decades-long investigations that track career trajectories from residency to retirement, and they are incredibly difficult and expensive to run. A short-term survey might tell us a resident is happy 1 year post-graduation, but it can't reveal much about their satisfaction, rates of burnout, or potential career changes 15 or 20 years later. Furthermore, we need much more nuanced research on the specific needs of residents from underrepresented minority groups. A one-size-fits-all approach to mentorship and career advising simply isn't sufficient. The guidance and support needed by a first-generation physician, for instance, may be profoundly different from their peers, and our research must be sophisticated enough to capture and address these distinct challenges. Then there's the challenge of evaluation. When we implement a new mentorship program or a career planning workshop, how do we prove it's working? Without standardized metrics and proper control groups, it's like testing a new therapy without a placebo arm. We can't definitively say our intervention caused the positive outcome, which makes it hard to scale effective programs with confidence. Finally, our research must look to the horizon. Future work has to explore the impact of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies on what it even means to be a physician. What will the role of a radiologist be in a world of AI-driven diagnostics? Our career planning has to prepare residents not for the jobs of today, but for the evolving practice of tomorrow. These gaps aren't just academic exercises. They represent concrete opportunities to improve the well-being and effectiveness of our future physicians. The challenge now is to build a more rigorous, inclusive, and forward-thinking evidence base. So, how can we best prioritize this crucial work? While the research community continues to refine our understanding, the evidence we already have paints a very clear picture. The time for deliberation is over, the time for action is now. Proactive career planning isn't simply a tool for satisfaction, it's a fundamental driver of professional resilience and longevity. What we commonly see is that residents who intentionally align their careers with their personal values and life goals are far better insulated against the pressures that lead to burnout. It's about building a sustainable professional life, not just finding the next job. Throughout our discussion, we've identified the systemic gaps that exist in many residency programs. These aren't minor cracks. They represent a foundational weakness in our training infrastructure. We're often excellent at teaching clinical medicine, but we leave the critical architecture of career building to chance, and our residents, and ultimately their patients, pay the price. The solution we're advocating for is a holistic and integrated one. This means moving beyond a single CV writing workshop in the final year. A helpful way to think about this is a longitudinal curriculum that weaves together structured self-assessment, dedicated and protected mentorship, and the practical skills needed to navigate the business of medicine. And the return on this investment is undeniable. When we invest in comprehensive career planning, we see a powerful downstream effect. Reduced burnout leads to lower physician turnover, which improves continuity of care and patient safety. Ultimately, it fosters a more stable, effective, and robust physician workforce for the entire country. So the call to action is direct and unambiguous. This is an institutional imperative. Health systems and training programs must prioritize and, crucially, adequately resource comprehensive career development. It can no longer be an afterthought or an unfunded mandate. The need is clear and the benefits are compelling. The question then becomes, how do we translate this vision into reality? What are the specific, actionable steps that program directors, department chairs, and institutional leaders can implement right now? Recognizing the challenges isn't enough. The crucial question is, how do we translate these insights into concrete change for our residents and the healthcare system? The answer requires action at every level, from the individual program to national policy. First, this process must start on day one. Residency programs should implement a formal career curriculum beginning in the PGY 1 year. When interns are overwhelmed by new clinical duties, proactive guidance is essential to prevent career planning from becoming an afterthought. It's about building a solid foundation early, before the pressure to specialize intensifies. Of course, a curriculum requires support. This is why institutions must provide dedicated resources, specifically protected faculty time for mentorship and career counseling. In practice, when mentorship is an unfunded expectation added to an already full workload, it simply doesn't happen effectively. We must treat career guidance as a core educational mission with a real budget. To support these programs, our national medical organizations have a vital role. Bodies like the ACGME and various specialty societies can develop standardized toolkits and best practices. This approach prevents hundreds of programs from reinventing the wheel and ensures the guidance residents receive is consistent, high quality, and evidence-based across the country. Looking at the bigger picture, policymakers must also engage. Physician workforce planning is a matter of public health. By funding initiatives that support resident career exploration, we can better address physician shortages in critical specialties and underserved geographic areas. It's where individual choice meets systemic health policy. Finally, this isn't a passive process. Residents themselves must take ownership of their professional journey. This means proactively seeking out mentors, using elective time to explore different practice settings, and engaging in honest self-reflection. The system provides the map and the compass, but you are the one who has to navigate the path. These recommendations form a comprehensive framework for change, touching every level of our medical education system. So, what is the evidentiary foundation for taking these specific actions? That brings us to the close of our discussion on shaping your future, the imperative of proactive career planning in residency training. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the foundational concepts through to practical implications. I hope the evidence and insights we've explored give you a solid framework to work with. I'd welcome any questions or thoughts you'd like to share. You can also access the slides using the QR code on screen. Thank you for your time and engagement. That brings us to the close of our discussion on shaping your future, the imperative of proactive career planning in residency training. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the foundational concepts through to practical implications. I hope the evidence and insights we've explored give you a solid framework to work with. I'd welcome any questions or thoughts you'd like to share. You can also access the slides using the QR code on screen. Thank you for your time and engagement.